So as we all know, playoffs are right around the corner, and right after these electrifying play-in games are over, we're going to see the matchup between the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers. When it comes to playoffs, everyone seems to always be talking about X factors and how those X factors are going to play a huge vital role in determining whether or not a team is going to have an opportunity to win or lose. And of course, for the Dallas Mavericks, a lot of people say Dante Exum because Dante Exum has had great clutch moments for the Dallas Mavericks this season. But someone I have been harping on since the trades and even since the offseason for the Dallas Mavericks is PJ Washington. So PJ Washington has already played a massive role in the Dallas Mavericks' newfound defensive identity. And on the season, this man has put up 12.9 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2 assists on 44, 32, 68 splits, which for a scorer that doesn't sound too great, but you have to keep in mind this man is practically the Dallas Mavericks' entire defensive identity. Of course, defensive scheme, team defense is a big part of why the Dallas Mavericks have been so good on that end, but PJ Washington has played a huge role in that. And one thing I want to talk about specifically for this matchup against the Clippers, last time the Mavericks and the Clippers faced off, people don't really talk about this, but the Mavs did not have a big wing like that to throw at Kawhi. And another thing is Kawhi is still an elite scorer and can play fantastic defense, but Kawhi has kind of lost a step just a little bit when it comes to athleticism and quickness, and he cannot get by PJ Washington at will like he could get by Dorian Finney-Smith or Maxi Kleber or whoever he was. I don't even remember who was primarily guarding him in that series. That was so long ago. But I promise you, none of them could stay in front of him like PJ Washington can. And the main difference is PJ is strong. In several different matchups this season, like for instance against the Spurs when he guarded Victor Wembanyama, against the Jazz when he was guarding Lauri Markkanen, he's guarded some bigger dudes that way more than Kawhi and kept them from backing him down at all, which obviously Lauri's not really a back to the basket type guy, but on his drives too, didn't really push PJ around at all. And Lauri's practically 7 feet tall. So one major difference between this playoffs matchup and last is PJ Washington's going to be on Kawhi every minute of the floor that he's there. And of course, they're going to throw Maxi at him. They're going to throw different looks to try and mix it up. But as far as keeping Kawhi from averaging 35 against us like last time, PJ Washington is a big deal in that. And the other part of this is that historically, in PJ's first 4 seasons of his career, he shot either above league average or league average from 3 on between 4 and 6 attempts. And as soon as he started upping his volume to 6 attempts a game, that's when it started declining a little bit. But the thing is PJ has a very nice 3-point shot. Obviously, numbers-wise so far, the past couple of seasons, no. But I'm talking about his form, his release, his quickness. As far as spacing goes, PJ has a really good 3-pointer. So when it comes to some wings, yeah, they might be shooting 40% on like 2 attempts a game. I mean, Derrick Jones Jr. is not shooting that high, but like a guy like Herb Jones or a guy like Dante Exum, for example, they might be shooting a really high percentage on low volume, which is good. But when it comes to spacing, those guys still get left open a decent bit. And in the playoffs, that can really be exploited unless they're really knocking down those threes and willing to shoot more in the playoffs. They kind of slow down a good bit when it comes to the playoffs and sometimes get played off the floor despite having such a big defensive impact. And the thing with PJ Washington is, yeah, right now he's only shooting 32% from 3, but he's a high volume 3-point shooter. He shoots 6 a game. That's only 1.5 less than Kyrie. That's really good volume, and he has a really quick release, and people always are closing out on him. So it's not like his misses are just, oh, PJ's wide open in the corner and he's clanking that off the side of the backboard. No, most of his shots are pretty heavily contested. They're not by any means smothered. He's not just having a guy right up on him the whole game, but when he gets a catch and shoot look, usually they're closing out pretty hard on him because they know he has that ability. And the thing is he has a very quick release. So when it comes to spacing, PJ does provide a good bit of spacing because they know that if they sag off, they can't just like completely sag off of him because he's still going to be able to get that shot off if they're not right up on him. And he is a good shooter. It's just he has not been shooting a great percentage. When it comes to offense for PJ this playoffs, I think PJ might be able to really ramp it up. I'm not saying PJ is going to come out and average 20 points a game, but I could easily see PJ averaging like 15, 16 points a game for a series. And when you have a guy like Luka who's going to, one of these series, if they get past the first one, is going to put up like 35 to 40 points on average for the whole series, obviously with his 10 assists, whatever. Kyrie's going to average at least 25 to 30. We don't need our third scorer, to whoever that may be, once it comes playoff time. We don't need our third scorer to be dropping 20, 25 points a game. We just need a guy who can consistently knock down his shots and put up close to like 14, 15, 16 points a game. That will be huge. And this guy is going to be on the court for 35, 40 minutes a night throughout the playoffs. If we advance past the first round, who knows? This guy is going to be playing almost every minute of the game because he plays elite defense and he is a huge part of our defensive identity. Every single one of the Dallas Mavericks very positive lineups has one, well, not one common denominator because they also all have Luka and Kyrie in them, but they all have PJ Washington in them. And by positive rating, I mean like they have a decent net rating, not just a really good offensive rating or a really good defensive rating. All of the good net rating lineup have PJ Washington in them. So this man's going to see a lot of minutes. I really think he can shine so well in the playoffs. He's going to be way more open because the Clippers defense is going to really hone in on Kyrie and Luka. And if they're going to be playing a guy like Norman Powell, who knows who they put on PJ. If they put Harden, Norman Powell on PJ might be able to feast. PJ can drive off of closeouts. PJ does have that skill set where if he gets a nice pump fake in, gets them a little bit off balance, he can make his way to the rim. Yeah, this season he's shown that almost like at least 50% of the time he goes up on those, he gets stripped by a help defender because he brings the ball low for some reason. But if Luka can get with him on that, be like, hey man, keep that ball up. Keep it up near your head. Hold it tight. Do something. You got to have that ball still when you're going at the basket. Once you're jumping and in the air, you need to still have the ball in your hands. And man, if PJ can get a hang of that, that's an instant 4 more points a game. There's so many times where PJ's driving to the basket and he gets it stripped because he holds it low, or he's not at least holding it tight or moving it around so people aren't poking, jabbing, stripping it. PJ could average another 4 points a game just off of that alone. And that's what I mean by X factor, is that if PJ, we know PJ's defense is going to be so big, and it's already, if he can somehow really make a difference with a hobbled Kawhi guarding him, this series might be sealed in 5. Especially, I mean, if Kawhi doesn't play, you can probably write it off. Yeah, 5 games, I'd say. Kawhi doesn't play, maybe 4. It might be a sweep. You never know if Kawhi doesn't play. If Kawhi does play, it's likely he's not going to be at 100%, and PJ might make that man's life a nightmare. And on offense, if PJ can be somewhat consistent on hitting those open shots or driving off of closeouts when it's a 4-on-3 after a blitz or whatever, which now that I think about it, the Clippers don't really double team at all. They really switch heavy. But, you know, you're going to have to throw different looks at Luka. And if they do start to blitz, PJ is going to be that guy catching the ball in the corner or on the wing, and he can drive off those closeouts. And especially if there's not a guy like Zubac, or it's really Zubac. If they have Kawhi at the 5 or Terrence Mann at the 5 or Amir Coffey at the 5 like they do in their small ball lineups, PJ might feast on those pump fakes driving off of closeouts. I'm just really excited to see what this matchup against the Clippers is going to look like. There's just so many variables going into it. It's just 2 completely fresh teams, but it's still that same core on each team of, well, I guess if you count the Mavs core as Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber and Luka, that's really, and Tim Hardaway Jr., those same stars, Kawhi and Paul George versus Luka. That's kind of a rivalry at this point because Luka got knocked out his first 2 playoff appearances by the same team. It's kind of a situation where Luka's looking at this as some sort of a vengeance perspective. I'm really excited to see what Luka does. And if Luka's popping off like normal, if the defense is still somewhat upholding like it was in the last 23 games of the season, if Kyrie's having good games, being super efficient, going off in the fourth quarter, and if PJ remotely gets to what I talked about on offense, this could be a wrap of a series. And yes, I understand that's a lot of variables. Man, this is going to be so exciting. I really hope Kawhi plays, honestly. As a Mavs fan, obviously, I would prefer he just didn't even play because, yeah, we'd make it to the second round instantly. But As a fan of the sport, I really do hope Kawhi plays because this could be one of the best first round matchups we've seen in years. But this season, I'm super locked in and I'm so excited to watch this team. Man, they are so nice on both ends of the floor. There's so many aspects of the Mavericks game that I really think will translate over to the playoffs well. The Clippers, I have a lot of questions. The last however many games of the season Kawhi was out, or when he was playing, he was a little bit off of his game just because he was dealing with nagging injuries. The Clippers are a fun team to watch. I don't know how many of you have paid close attention to the Clippers this season, but when their offense is going, that's a really fun team to watch too. I'm just thinking about this from the perspective of like, as a basketball fan, as a fan of the NBA, this series could be absolutely electric. Real quick, I did want to talk a little bit about these play-in games because, man, were they exciting. I was 3-0 on my predictions. I didn't make a predictions video, but man, that Kings-Warriors game did not go how I was expecting at all. I really expected a Steph masterclass. I mean, I thought it was going to be really close. I really did not foresee Clay going 0 for 10 from the field. Yeah, that game was not nearly as fun as the others, but Lakers-Pelicans, that game was close most of the time. And LeBron James at 39 years old taking a charge from Zion Williamson and then getting up 5 minutes later and taking another charge from Herb Jones. LeBron is insane. I've been a lifelong LeBron hater until these past couple seasons because, wow, watching this guy do what he does at this age is just absolutely remarkable. And it's super entertaining to watch because he has become such an elite three-point shooter, such a good off-ball player that just watching LeBron play is super fun. Don't let the hater in you hold you back from watching great basketball. And when it comes to Pelicans, Ingram definitely looked super injured and was definitely not on his typical game. I was really hoping Ingram would be feeling a lot better so that we could see that playoff Ingram vibe that we got to see last season, because Ingram is a hooper, man, is a really fun player to watch. And Zion had an amazing game. Can we talk about that for a second? Is Zion one of the new playoff risers? I could see it. I mean, I was not expecting it to this level, but man, if Zion keeps playing like that, the Pelicans might have a better chance. I doubt. I don't know. What do we think? Do we think the Pelicans are going to beat I mean, yeah, Pelicans have got to beat the Kings, right? I don't see. Is Zion still injured? Maybe I should have looked up some of this stuff before I wanted to talk about it. But if Ingram's feeling a little bit better, a little bit more back in shape after being out for a decent amount of time, if Zion's okay and not actually hurt and he's playing full strength, Zion is just a absolute man and can get whatever he wants at the rim when he's going. When Zion is getting a full head of steam and he wants to score like that, that is scary. That is a scary sight. Was it Herb that hit that transition three like second quarter? Trey Murphy with some really clutch baskets, but ultimately the Lakers came out on top. AD looked pretty solid. D'Angelo Russell looking confident in a very important game is pretty awesome to see. If they can have D'Lo playing like that throughout I don't think the Lakers are going to beat the Nuggets, let's be real. But if D'Lo's playing really good throughout this series, AD's locking up, they'll probably have AD play off ball. I don't know. Do they usually have AD off ball and then someone else on Jokic so he can help? I don't know. Heat Sixers, what a great game. That one was probably even better than Lakers Pels. Heat Sixers, Jimmy Butler gets injured, and I think it was the first quarter still when he got hurt. He plays the rest of the game, looks injured the whole time, but still has a pretty solid game. He ends up with 5 steals, 19 points. Not a super efficient game, not a scoring explosion from Jimmy, but the Sixers end up taking it in the end. The Sixers were down by, I think they were down 15 at the end of the second quarter, or some point, maybe early third, they went down by 15. Nicholas Batum, that man can shoot the ball and D up. That man was so clutch in the fourth. He really went off. He honestly won the game for the Sixers. Like, they were not in the game until Batum started popping off. Embiid did his stuff. He did all right. Not any type of explosion from Embiid, but he had some really good shots. He hit a couple threes in the fourth. Or were both of those threes in the fourth? I don't know. But one of the threes he hit in the fourth was pretty much a dagger. And then Batum blocked Hero. It was over. I really thought the Heat had that game in the first half. The Heat looked so good. You could tell that Jimmy was really wearing on his knee. And why on earth did they not play Duncan? Duncan can shoot. Duncan can pass. He's got a great two-man game with Bam. I mean, Hero was big in the fourth. He did keep it close. But the whole game, Hero was shooting horribly. And I mean horribly. And I know Duncan's a terrible defender, but Hero's not. Is Hero really a better defender than Duncan? I don't think so. I think they really could have used that scoring punch from Duncan, or at least tried it for a couple minutes. Like, I don't think he logged any minutes that whole game. I didn't watch the first quarter, but yeah, sadly, the Heat fall to the six. I don't know if that's sadly. If you're a fan of an Eastern Conference team, you probably want the Heat out because you don't want them in the playoffs. I think Jimmy might be done for the season, at least a couple weeks, but the Heat can't last a couple weeks against the Knicks if that's going to be the case. Even without Jimmy, I have a feeling that the Heat can beat the Bulls, but the Bulls looked really good. I was really surprised with that game. The Bulls versus Hawks. I mean, I went into it being like, okay, this is just garbage versus less garbage, or this is garbage versus more fun garbage, but better garbage. The Bulls played really well. Kobe White was fantastic. I think he ended with 42 points, something like that. Ayo Dosunmu had like 7 assists, I think, and 19 points. I think DeMar ended with like 22 and 9. Everyone was really feasting. DeMar was not, he's still DeMar. He's getting his shots, but he wasn't stepping on anyone's toes like I was expecting him to. They look really decent on offense in that game, and that is not something I've seen throughout the season. You gotta give them a little bit of credit, but at the same time, you gotta realize how horrible the Hawks play defense and how pathetic that game looked. That was not a good showing from anyone, and not much else from that game. But yeah, the play-in was a good idea. Can we stop? I don't know if anyone's still hating on the play-in these days, but can we stop the play-in hate? I like the play-in. That was awesome. Those were basically playoff games. It's like March Madness, but in April again for only 4 days or 3 days worth of games. You know, it's fun. Single elimination, it's fun. Do I want that in the playoffs? No, not at all. But right before, that's a really fun way to mix up the ending of the season going into the playoffs. I know if your team is in the play-in, you obviously are not ever going to appreciate the play-in when that's currently happening. But yeah, the play-in, I like that. Lakers Pels and Sixers Heat, both of those games were absolutely electrifying to watch, so fun. And I'm really glad that they incorporated the play-in. And PJ Washington, we know you're our X factor. Can't wait to see you clamp up Kawhi. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I just delusional about anything I just said? Let me know how much you disagree with me. Peace. Also, just some quick breaking news. Lawrence Frank, president of basketball operations for the Los Angeles Clippers, has just announced that Kawhi has yet to do any contact practice. He has only done the mental side of preparation for this series. So that means Kawhi is completely inoperable up to this point as of 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, April 18th. We are currently 3 days away from Game 1, so that's kind of huge news for the Dallas Mavericks. Ayo.